The galaxy had always been a place of wonders, but also of cruelty. In the distant systems where law barely reached, power often dictated morality. On the edge of known space, a small trading station orbited a dying red star, its metal frame battered by storms of cosmic dust. The station was a hub for travelers, smugglers, and merchants of all kinds, yet its most infamous function was the auction of rare beings. Species that had once ruled worlds now languished in containment, displayed like prizes for those who had the means and heartlessness to buy them. Among the captives was Lyra, a Valerie woman whose height and graceful movements still hinted at the nobility of her people. The Valerie had once commanded silver forests that floated above oceans on their home planet, a world of peace and beauty. That planet was lost to war, conquered by the Varkun Dominion, and Lyra, one of the few survivors, had been captured and brought here. Her wrists were locked in energy chains, and a glowing collar encircled her neck. She was held within a transparent containment field, as if to make her both visible and powerless. A sign above her listed her as exotic, rare, intelligent, compliant. She refused to bow her head, despite the cruel amusement of the gathered crowd. Her emerald eyes swept across the hall, meeting the gaze of every onlooker without fear. Pride and awareness glimmered in her expression. Many would have mistaken her calm as resignation. But in truth, Lyra was calculating, measuring each individual, each threat. She had survived so much that mere chains could not intimidate her. The auction hall buzzed with excitement. Species from across the galaxy had come to bid, eager to own something unusual. Wealthy Varkun officers laughed and whispered, confident that her fate was sealed. Lyra had become part of a system that dehumanized her, but she did not let despair show. Every movement she made was controlled, deliberate, and calm. She refused to give the satisfaction of a reaction. Ethan Cole entered the hall quietly, blending with the flow of traffic as he moved toward the center. He was a human, small in stature compared to most of the bidders, with short brown hair and keen eyes that had seen much in his years as a mechanic and engineer. He was not wealthy, and he had no experience in intergalactic auctions of rare beings. He had come to the station for parts to repair his ship, not to witness this display. But as his eyes landed on Lyra, something in him stopped. At first, he thought she might be some kind of advanced synthetic. Her movements were too precise, her posture too elegant, her gaze too intelligent. But then he saw it, the subtle twitch of recognition in her eyes, the flare of controlled anger. She was not a machine. She was fully alive, fully aware, and fully trapped. Ethan asked a merchant standing nearby, his voice quiet. "Is she a criminal?" The merchant laughed, showing teeth too sharp to be human. "No, she is property bought from the Dominion, one of their rarest specimens. You could call her a collectible." Ethan's chest tightened. He had read about the Varkun Dominion, their conquests, their raids, but seeing a living being chained as if she were nothing more than an object made his stomach turn. He clenched his fists, holding himself back from stepping forward immediately. The bidding began. The Varkun officer at the front started with a high amount, his confidence apparent. Lyra's eyes scanned the room, noting every person, every reaction. She was not blind to the value placed on her suffering. The humans and other species around her had long accepted such cruelty as part of life. She, however, would not. Ethan moved closer to the edge of the crowd, watching quietly at first. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the hall, chanting numbers, calling out bids. Each bid raised the stakes, each coin or crystal paid for her freedom from one master, only to hand her to another. To Lyra it was meaningless. She had no expectation of kindness from anyone here. As the bidding escalated, Ethan's heart hammered. He was not wealthy. He did not have the credits to easily outbid these powerful species. But as he watched the officer smile, certain of victory, something inside him snapped. He could not stand by. He would do something, even if it risked everything. "I bid all I have," he said, stepping forward and placing his offer on the table. It was a fraction of what the officer had offered, yet it was more than anyone expected. The hall froze, heads turned, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Humans rarely participated in such auctions, and even rarer were humans willing to risk their fortunes for something that others considered expendable. The merchant raised an eyebrow, his grin widening. "Sold!" he barked. Lyra blinked, not immediately understanding. She had expected another buyer who would continue the cycle. She had not anticipated a human stepping in, not for ownership, not for profit, but seemingly out of principle. Ethan stepped forward, ignoring the whispers around him. He did not say anything yet. His first priority was to ensure she was unharmed. The officer scowled, tugging lightly at the chain that held her. Lyra stiffened but did not falter. Her pride was intact, though she had no way of knowing this human would not simply replace the chains with another. "You're free to come with me," Ethan said softly, surprising even himself at how firm his voice sounded. "You're not my property, you don't have to stay here." Lyra's eyes narrowed, suspicion evident. Freedom was a word she had not heard in years. She did not yet believe it could be real. "You purchased me," she said, her voice low but steady. "You are now my master." "No," Ethan replied, shaking his head. "I did not buy you to own you, I bought you to remove you from them. That is not the same." Lyra stared at him, trying to understand. Ownership had always been absolute. She had been trained to obey through pain and fear. No one had ever acted this way before. The uncertainty unsettled her, yet intrigued her at the same time. The officer stepped forward, his voice raised in anger. "You cannot interfere, you human. That is property. You will return it now." Ethan did not flinch. "No, she is not property, and I will not hand her back to you." A tension settled over the hall. Other bidders shifted nervously. The Varkun officer's pride had been challenged publicly, and the human before him did not seem afraid. For a moment no one moved. The auctioneer paused, unsure how to proceed. Lyra, meanwhile, considered her options. She could run, but the chains were still partially active, and the human who had bought her was offering a strange kind of protection. She could refuse, but she had learned long ago that resistance without strategy often ended in pain. And yet something about this human made her pause. Ethan glanced at the collar around her neck. It glowed faintly, a constant reminder of control, of obedience, of captivity. He had no idea how to disable it yet, but he would learn. He had to. Her freedom depended on it, and he would not fail. The crowd continued to murmur. Some speculated that the human would fail. Others were fascinated by his audacity. Lyra herself was silent, observing. She had been chained, used, and displayed for much of her life, yet she had never seen such determination. The Varkun officer growled and left the hall to send reinforcements. Ethan turned to Lyra. "We need to get out of here before they come back. I will find a way to remove that collar. You will be free." Lyra tilted her head slightly, skepticism in her expression. But there was also something else, the first spark of hope she had felt in years. She nodded, not trusting entirely, but willing to follow. Together, they moved toward the docking bay, navigating the corridors of the station with quiet urgency. The station's guards were caught off guard, unsure whether to pursue or respect the auction's abrupt end. Ethan guided her to his ship, a modest human freighter named Horizon Dawn, small but fast, and equipped with hidden defenses he had installed himself. Once aboard, he secured the hatch and turned to face her. Lyra was wary, still unsure of his intentions. He studied the collar's interface, searching for a way to disable it safely. For hours he worked, focusing entirely on the task. Each moment of progress brought her closer to freedom, yet he could not guarantee success. A mistake might harm her, and he would not forgive himself. Lyra watched him quietly. She was exhausted from years of captivity, yet something in her stirred. Curiosity, caution, and a growing sense of possibility blended within her. She had been chained like a pet for so long that the idea of someone risking everything for her safety was almost unbelievable. Finally, with careful precision, the collar's control functions were overridden. It fell to the floor, a harmless piece of technology instead of a tool of control. Lyra touched her bare neck, feeling skin she had not felt exposed for years. For a moment she felt disbelief, then relief, and finally, a strange, unfamiliar gratitude. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan shrugged slightly, looking into her eyes. "Because it was wrong. No one deserves this." The first barrier was broken. The chains, both physical and symbolic, were gone. And although danger still lurked, reinforcements could arrive. The Varkun officer would not forgive this affront. Lyra was no longer just a captive. She was a free being beginning to choose her own path. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that her life might not be defined by chains. The Horizon Dawn drifted silently through the black expanse of space. Beyond its hull, stars shimmered faintly, scattered across the void like distant fires. Inside, the atmosphere was calm, yet tension lingered. Lyra leaned against the control console, her arms crossed, eyes scanning the small room with caution. She was no stranger to danger, yet this situation was different. She had survived countless wars, outrun entire fleets, and escaped deadly traps, but the uncertainty of freedom was new. Ethan moved between the ship systems, checking the engines and communications panels. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked, not from physical exertion, but from the pressure of responsibility. He had disabled the collar, but the Varkun officer would not tolerate this act. Reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Every decision he made now could mean life or death for both of them. Lyra's voice cut through the silence. "You risked yourself for me? Why?" Ethan paused, wiping a hand across his face. He did not turn to answer immediately. "Because no one should be treated that way," he said finally. "Because freedom is not something you buy, it's something you fight for." She considered this. Her people had been taught that freedom was a concept easily crushed by power. Yet here was a human, small and unarmed in comparison to the station's forces, challenging that power and winning. For the first time in years, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. The ship's comm system beeped faintly, and Ethan tapped the console to check. A local broadcast from the station was streaming across the channels. The footage of the auction, the bids, and the moment he had freed her was being replayed across nearby systems. Whispers of the incident had already begun to circulate. The Varkun officer's face appeared on the screen, fury unmistakable. "They'll send ships," Lyra said, her tone steady but low. "They cannot forgive this. They never forgive." Ethan nodded. "I know, that's why we need to move quickly. I have routes to safer systems, places where we can hide until we figure out what to do next." Lyra's green eyes softened slightly. She had expected fear or hesitation from him. Instead, he showed determination, courage. And the one quality she had learned to value above all in survival, unpredictability. Humans were unpredictable, and that was dangerous to those who relied on control. The ship hummed as Ethan activated the sublight engines. Outside, the red star shrank into the distance. The station would soon be behind them, and with it, the immediate threat. But Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The Varkun Dominion did not forgive, and their pride had been wounded. They spent the next hours navigating through asteroid fields and hidden channels between star systems. Lyra observed Ethan closely. Despite his calm demeanor, she could see the strain in his movements, the quick flicks of his fingers across control panels, the way he checked every system multiple times. He cared deeply about keeping her safe, and that thought stirred something she had long buried. She had learned to rely only on herself. Now someone else was invested in her survival. "Do you trust me?" Ethan asked after a while, breaking the silence. Lyra tilted her head. "I do not know yet. Trust is earned, not given freely." Ethan smiled faintly. "Fair enough. I don't expect blind trust. I just ask that you follow my lead for now. That will be enough." Lyra studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Very well." Their silence resumed, comfortable now, punctuated only by the hum of the engines. Ethan worked on repairing a minor system glitch in the navigational array, while Lyra reviewed the ship's layout, familiarizing herself with exits, emergency protocols, and potential hiding spots. She moved with grace, careful not to touch the controls unnecessarily, but absorbing every detail. Years of captivity had made her cautious, strategic, and observant. She could read danger where others would see only ordinary objects. Hours passed, and the first real challenge arrived. A small patrol of Varkun skiffs appeared on sensors, tracking them through the subspace channels. Ethan's hand flew over the console, initiating evasive maneuvers. "They're faster than I expected," he muttered. "They must have anticipated that I'd try to escape." Lyra stepped closer, her voice low and controlled. "I can help. Give me access to the tactical interface." Ethan hesitated briefly. Trust was not given lightly, but he saw the determination in her eyes. "Fine," he said, stepping aside, "but follow my instructions. We cannot afford mistakes." For the next tense hour, they worked in tandem. Lyra analyzed the patrols, predicting their movement, while Ethan executed maneuvers, dodging asteroids, weaving through narrow channels, and occasionally dropping decoys. The two moved as one, a combination of human ingenuity and Valerie precision. Finally, the skiffs fell behind, unable to maintain pursuit through the twisting corridors. Lyra exhaled for the first time in what felt like months, a mixture of relief and pride. "You humans are more resourceful than I expected," she said with a faint smile. Ethan shrugged modestly. "I've had to be. Survival isn't handed to anyone in space. They shared a quiet laugh, the first real one since their meeting. Despite the danger that still lay ahead, a bond was forming, an alliance born not of obligation, but of respect. As the hours turned into days, Ethan and Lyra plotted a course toward neutral space, a region where lawless sectors gave way to trading hubs with loose oversight. They needed to resupply, repair minor damage, and plan their next move. The Varkun Dominion would not stop searching, but neither could they act openly without drawing unwanted attention. During this time, Lyra began to share fragments of her past. Stories of the Valerie homeworld, of silver forests and floating oceans, of a civilization that valued knowledge, honor, and artistry above conquest. She spoke of the war, of the fall of her planet, and of the years spent in captivity. Ethan listened without interruption, absorbing every word. "You survived because you refused to break," Ethan said quietly. "Most would have given in long ago." Lyra looked at him, a shadow of a smile on her lips. "I had no choice but to survive. Breaking was easy." "Surviving required something more," the human nodded. "Then we'll survive together." They worked as a team, sharing duties aboard the ship. Ethan taught her some basic human navigation protocols, while Lyra offered insights into tactical thinking, alien communication methods, and strategic planning. Their mutual respect deepened. Lyra realized that Ethan did not see her as a prize, a curiosity, or even a responsibility. He saw her as a capable being, an equal in decision-making. The days passed with calculated caution, yet one night, as they approached the outer edge of the neutral sector, an unexpected distress signal arrived. A nearby freighter had been attacked by pirates, its crew stranded and defenseless. Ethan considered ignoring it. Every decision now carried risk, and he had enough to manage without adding strangers to the mix. Lyra's voice stopped him. "We cannot ignore them. That is not who we are." He looked at her, impressed by her conviction. Humans often acted impulsively, but she was advocating action based on principle. "Very well," he said, "but we need a plan." Working together, they devised a strategy. Ethan would approach with stealth protocols, minimizing detection, while Lyra would use her knowledge of alien systems to override the freighter's failing defenses. It was risky, but the alternative, leaving innocents to suffer, was unacceptable. The operation was tense. Sensors detected the pirates, but the Horizon Dawn slipped past undetected. Lyra's skills proved invaluable. She accessed the freighter's control systems and restored power long enough for the crew to respond. In coordinated action, Ethan piloted the ship to block the pirate vessels while Lyra guided the freighter to safety. Afterward, the rescued crew thanked them profusely. Ethan waved off the gratitude. Lyra, however, looked at him with a mixture of admiration and amusement. "You humans are indeed unpredictable. I did not expect such bravery." Ethan smiled, though tired. "Bravery isn't about strength, it's about choice, and I choose to do what is right." Lyra nodded. Her respect for him grew. This was not a man seeking glory or profit. He acted out of principle, and that principle was a power she had underestimated. As they continued their journey, news of the auction and their escape spread quietly. Whispers reached distant systems, rumors of a human defying the Varkun Dominion and freeing a Valerie woman. In some places, it inspired hope. In others, it drew scrutiny. The galaxy was beginning to notice that not all humans could be predicted, and that some were willing to challenge even the most oppressive powers. The Horizon Dawn finally reached a quiet, unpopulated system where they could rest. Ethan began repairs on the ship while Lyra mapped the region, noting safe harbors and potential allies. They were far from safe, but they were together, and that was more than either had expected. Lyra touched the wall of the ship, feeling the vibrations of the engines, the hum of energy flowing through the systems. She had been chained for so long, and yet here she was, moving freely, making decisions, and reclaiming agency over her own life. She glanced at Ethan, realizing that her freedom had come not just from removing the collar, but from finding someone who respected her enough to let her choose. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Hope for survival, hope for agency, and hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy could be a place where right was not always determined by power. Ethan noticed the thoughtful expression on her face. "We'll make it," he said quietly. "One step at a time." Lyra smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and determination. "One step at a time," she echoed, and with that they prepared for the challenges ahead. Pirates, dominions, and the unpredictable dangers of the galaxy would come for them. But together, they were no longer just a mechanic and a captive. They were allies, partners, and a force that even the galaxy would have to reckon with. The Horizon Dawn drifted silently through the outer edges of neutral space. Its small engines hummed with quiet efficiency, carrying Lyra and Ethan toward a future neither of them fully understood. They had survived the immediate threat of the Varkun Dominion skiffs, and they had rescued a freighter crew along the way, but danger still lingered like a shadow. The galaxy was watching, and powerful forces did not forgive easily. Lyra stood on the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. They reminded her of the sky on her homeworld, though nothing could ever replace the silver forests and floating oceans she remembered from childhood. Her people had been proud, wise, and strong, yet all of that had been stripped from her when the Varkun Dominion conquered her planet. Now, standing free aboard a human vessel, she felt a mixture of hope and determination she had not known for years. Ethan approached quietly, carrying a small data pad. He handed it to her. "I found information on Valerie survivors," he said. "Some are scattered across the galaxy. They're in hiding, but they're still alive." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She had assumed she was one of the last. Seeing hope for her people sparked a fire within her. "We need to find them," she said firmly. "If they are alive, we cannot leave them to be hunted or enslaved." Ethan nodded. "I'll help, but we have to be careful. The Dominion is powerful, and they'll be looking for you." The two of them began planning their journey. They mapped systems where Valerie survivors might be hiding, analyzing trade routes, hidden colonies, and abandoned outposts. Each choice carried risk. They needed to move carefully, avoiding patrols while still reaching those in need. As they traveled, Ethan repaired the Horizon Dawn's engines and reinforced its shields. Lyra studied alien technology, learning human systems quickly, impressing Ethan with her adaptability. Their skills complemented each other perfectly, her tactical thinking and intuition, his technical expertise and quick improvisation. They had become more than allies. They had become a team capable of facing the galaxy's dangers. One night, as they rested in the ship's small common area, a warning signal blinked on the console. Sensors detected an incoming fleet, larger than any they had encountered so far. Lyra and Ethan shared a tense glance. "They must have tracked us," Lyra said. "The Dominion is not done." Ethan activated the main communication system, sending a coded distress signal to nearby human patrols. They needed backup, but it might not arrive in time. "We'll have to fight them off ourselves for now," he said, checking the ship's weapons systems. The Varkun fleet appeared on sensors, moving with precision and coordination. Ethan piloted the Horizon Dawn, weaving through asteroids and debris fields, while Lyra monitored the enemy ships, predicting their maneuvers. "They're trying to box us in," she observed. "If we don't act quickly, we'll be trapped." Ethan's hands moved over the controls with practiced speed. "We'll use the asteroid field to our advantage. Follow my lead." Lyra activated the ship's tactical interface, calculating trajectories and energy bursts. She guided Ethan through tight channels between massive rocks, dodging enemy fire with precision. The Dominion ships underestimated their opponents. They assumed a human freighter and a single alien would be easy prey. Hours passed in tense maneuvers. Ethan deployed decoys and electronic interference, while Lyra hacked into enemy sensors, feeding false signals and creating confusion. Together, they turned the tables. The Dominion fleet struggled to coordinate, giving the Horizon Dawn the advantage. Finally, they emerged from the asteroid field, having lost the pursuing ships. Both Lyra and Ethan were exhausted, but the relief was palpable. "We survived," Ethan said quietly, almost in disbelief. Lyra nodded, her gaze distant. "We did, but the fight is far from over." The victory had not gone unnoticed. Rumors of their escape, their daring tactics, and their defiance of the Varkun Dominion spread quickly across human and alien networks. Some species admired their courage. Others warned of the consequences of challenging such a powerful force. Lyra realized that their actions were not just about survival. They were making a statement to the galaxy. As they continued their journey, they located a hidden Valerie colony on a remote asteroid cluster. The survivors were cautious, wary of humans and strangers alike. Lyra approached them with humility, explaining who she was and why she had come. Her presence alone was enough to reassure them. They had believed the Valerie line was broken, that their people were lost forever. Ethan observed quietly, allowing Lyra to take the lead. He understood that trust had to be earned, and that the Valerie would respond to their own. Lyra's return ignited hope among the survivors. They began to share information about other hidden groups, secret supply caches, and Dominion patrol patterns. With this intelligence, Lyra and Ethan planned a coordinated effort to rescue more Valerie and disrupt Dominion operations. Each mission was dangerous, requiring stealth, strategy, and quick thinking. They moved from system to system, slowly building a network of survivors and allies. Humans, Valerie, and sympathetic species worked together, united by a shared cause. Despite the constant danger, moments of humanity persisted. Lyra and Ethan shared stories of their pasts, dreams, and fears. Ethan spoke of Earth, of a planet full of people who valued curiosity, courage, and justice. Lyra shared memories of her homeworld, of silver forests and floating oceans, of a civilization that had once thrived in peace. One day, as they prepared to intercept a Dominion supply convoy, Lyra turned to Ethan. "Do you think we can truly make a difference?" Ethan smiled, his confidence unwavering. "We already have. Every person we rescue, every act of defiance changes the balance. The Dominion may be powerful, but they underestimate what people can do when they refuse to be controlled." Lyra nodded. "Then we continue. For my people, for the future." The operation was perilous. The convoy was heavily armed, and detection meant certain death. Ethan piloted the Horizon Dawn through a narrow approach, while Lyra hacked into the convoy's systems. They disabled weapons, opened cargo bays, and freed prisoners. Each moment was tense, each maneuver critical. By the time they emerged victorious, the Dominion had suffered significant losses. The freed Valerie joined forces with Lyra, forming a growing resistance. Word of the human who had defied the Dominion and the Valerie who reclaimed their freedom spread across the galaxy. The Horizon Dawn became a symbol of hope. Its small crew, a human and an alien, showed that courage, intelligence, and unity could challenge even the most oppressive forces. Lyra, once a prisoner, now led efforts to rebuild her people, reclaiming heritage, culture, and pride. Ethan never sought glory. He had acted out of principle, yet his actions inspired others. Humans began to be seen not as weak or reckless, but as unpredictable, resourceful, and committed allies. The Varkun Dominion, once confident in their control, began to hesitate. Resistance was growing, alliances forming. One human and one Valerie had sparked a movement that the galaxy could not ignore. Lyra stood on the bridge of a restored Valerie cruiser, her gaze firm and determined. Ethan stood beside her, quiet but resolute. "You freed me," she said softly, "but you gave more than freedom." Ethan looked out at the stars. "I just reminded the galaxy that chains are not permanent," and indeed they were not. Together, they continued to chart a course through the stars, rescuing, rebuilding, and resisting. The Horizon Dawn became a beacon, a symbol that courage and moral conviction could alter the course of history. Where once Lyra had been chained and helpless, she now stood as a leader, guiding her people with strength and vision. Ethan had no illusions. The galaxy was dangerous and challenges would come. But he knew that with allies like Lyra and with people willing to stand for justice, no chain was unbreakable, no tyranny permanent. The Varkun Dominion would learn this. Slowly, surely, the galaxy was shifting. And it all began with one human choosing to act, refusing to accept injustice, and believing that freedom was a right, not a luxury. As Lyra and Ethan watched distant stars flicker, both understood that their journey had only just begun. The fight for freedom, justice, and the future of the Valerie and their allies would continue, and the legacy of courage they had begun would resonate across systems for generations to come. They had faced fear, defied power, and risked everything. And through it all, humanity had shown its strength, not in weapons or fleets, but in heart, principle, and the willingness to stand for what was right. Lyra smiled faintly at Ethan. "One day, the galaxy will remember that humans can make a difference." Ethan shrugged modestly. "I just hope it's soon enough to save those who still need us." And as the Horizon Dawn sailed onward, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Freedom, once a distant dream, was now a living reality, forged by courage, unity, and the refusal to bow to oppression.